I always thought I'd see it coming. That's the thing about betrayal. You convince yourself you'd spot the warning signs. I was wrong. My hands trembled as I balanced the grocery bags against my swollen belly, fumbling for the house keys. 8 months pregnant and sweating through my shirt in the August heat. Another day of playing the perfect wife while feeling like a ghost in my own home. I could hear Nathan's voice before I even opened the door, that charismatic laugh he reserved for everyone but me. The one that had disappeared from our private conversations months ago, right around the time my pregnancy began to show. And then I told the client, "That's not how we do business here." More laughter erupted from our living room. His parents were visiting again. The monthly performance was underway. I shuffled into the foyer, grateful for the walls separating me from their immediate view. My ankles were swollen to twice their normal size, and my back felt like it might snap in half. I set the groceries down with a quiet thud and took 3 deep breaths before plastering on what I'd come to think of as my "Nathan's parents are here" smile. There she is! Nathan's face lit up the moment I entered the room, a spotlight performance worthy of Broadway. His warm expression was so convincing that for a split second, I almost believed it myself. We were just talking about the Palmer account. The Palmer account. Always the fucking Palmer account. As if I hadn't heard every detail of that deal for the past 6 months. "Hi, Carol. Hi, Richard," I said, nodding to my in-laws perched on our imported leather sofa, the one Nathan had insisted on buying despite the astronomical price tag. "Sorry I'm late. The store was packed." Carol's eyes performed their usual inspection, starting at my hair, too messy, moving to my maternity dress, too casual, and ending at my bare feet, apparently offensive. "Sophia, darling, you really should wear proper shoes even in your condition. It's so unrefined." My condition. That's what she called my pregnancy, like it was a disease I'd contracted through carelessness. "I couldn't find your whiskey," I said to Nathan, choosing to ignore Carol's comment. "They were out at Westside Market." The shift was immediate. Nathan's smile remained fixed in place, but his eyes turned to ice. "Did you try Eastbrook, or Franklin's, or literally any other store in a 5-mile radius?" The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Richard cleared his throat and examined his watch with sudden interest. "I had 3 other stops to make for the dinner party tomorrow," I explained, having the defensive tone creeping into my voice. "And the doctor said I shouldn't be on my feet for." "I have colleagues coming tomorrow, Sophia." Nathan's voice was calm, reasonable, the voice he used when documenting my failures for future reference. "You know how important this dinner is." "I can go to Franklin's right now," Carol offered, already reaching for her designer purse. "It's no trouble. Some women just aren't good at managing these little details, especially when they're—" She gestured vaguely at my stomach. I felt my face flush. "I can go back out." "Don't bother," Nathan sighed, standing up with dramatic resignation. "I'll go get it myself, since apparently that's too difficult for you to manage." The familiar ache spread through my chest, that hollow feeling of being seen but not actually visible. I'd been experiencing it with increasing frequency over the past year. The pregnancy had only accelerated the process. As Nathan grabbed his keys from the crystal bowl by the door, I caught a glimpse of our wedding photo on the mantel. 4 years ago. My smile genuine, his arm protectively around my waist. I barely recognized either of us. I remembered the day he missed my 20-week ultrasound. I'd sat alone in that sterile room, technician asking where my husband was, my mouth forming the practiced lie. "Emergency at work. He's so disappointed to miss it." In reality, he'd texted, "Got held up in a meeting. Reschedule if you can. If not, just get them to print the pictures." The memory of our baby's heartbeat pulsing through the room, while I held my own hand, still made my eyes sting. There was the afternoon I'd struggled up our driveway with groceries, catching a glimpse of Nathan watching from the window. He turned away when I looked up, never coming to help. The doctor asking at my checkup, "Do you have good support at home? Someone helping with preparations?" My automatic nod and bright smile. "Oh yes, Nathan's been amazing." These memories cycled through my mind as I stood in our perfect living room with my perfect in-laws, feeling perfectly invisible. Sophia, Carol's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. Richard asked if you decided on a birthing plan yet. I opened my mouth to answer, but Nathan interrupted from the doorway. Let's not bore Dad with all that, honey, he said, keys jingling in his hand. Why don't you go lie down? You look tired. Translation, you look terrible, disappear. I nodded and retreated upstairs, my hand instinctively cradling my stomach. As I sank onto our bed, I could hear their laughter resuming downstairs, Nathan charming his parents with stories of his business prowess, while I faded further into the background of my own life. I just didn't realize how completely I would disappear before becoming visible again. The day everything changed started like any other. Nathan was driving us to my weekly checkup, his attention divided between the road and his phone. I was 37 weeks pregnant, uncomfortable and unusually quiet. I booked us a beach house for next weekend, he announced, scrolling through his email. Parker and Melissa will join us. We need to talk about the Anderson project before the quarter ends. I stared at his profile, wondering if he was joking. Next weekend? Nathan, I'm due in 3 weeks. The doctor said I could go into labor any day now. He didn't look up. It's a 4-hour drive. If anything happens, there are hospitals everywhere. Something sharp twisted in my lower back. I shifted in my seat, trying to find a comfortable position. I don't think it's a good idea to be that far from Dr. Hayes this close to my due date. You worry too much. His dismissive tone was so familiar it barely registered anymore. First bobbies are always late anyway. Another pain rippled through me, stronger this time. I held my breath until it passed. The sensation wasn't new. I'd been having Braxton Hicks contractions for weeks, but something felt different, more intense, more regular. Nathan continued talking about the beach house, detailing amenities I couldn't have cared less about. It has a private pool and direct beach access. Parker can bring his golf clubs, and we can. Pull over, I interrupted, a sudden wetness spreading beneath me. What? Pull over. Stop the car now. My voice was eerily calm despite the panic rising in my throat. Nathan glanced at me with irritation. We're on the highway, Sophia. I can't just. My water broke. His expression shifted from annoyance to disbelief. Are you sure? It's probably just. Pull over. This time I shouted it, doubling over as a contraction gripped me with unexpected force. Nathan jerked the wheel, guiding the car onto the shoulder. Traffic roared past us as he put the car in park and finally looked at me. What happened next still doesn't seem real, even now. Instead of rushing me to the hospital, instead of calling 911, instead of showing any human concern whatsoever, Nathan pulled out his phone and dialed. What are you doing? I gasped between breaths. He held up one finger, silencing me as the call connected. Jim, yeah, it's Nathan. Listen, I'm going to be late for the conference call. He paused, glancing at me with obvious irritation. Family situation, nothing serious, but I need to handle it. Another contraction hit, more powerful than the last. I clutched the dashboard, trying not to scream. Give me 20 minutes, Nathan continued, completely unmoved by my distress. Half-hour tops. When he hung up, I thought he would start the car, turn around, head to the hospital. Instead, he sighed heavily and turned to face me. I can't deal with this right now, Sophia. I have a critical call in 30 minutes that will determine if we land the Westfield account. I'm in labor, I said, each word deliberate. This isn't optional. His face hardened. Call yourself an Uber, or call your friend, what's her name, the photographer, have her take you. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. You want me to call an Uber while I'm in active labor? Don't be dramatic. You just said your water broke. That means you have hours before anything serious happens. He checked his watch. The hospital is 10 minutes away. I'll meet you there after my call. Nathan, I whispered, you can't be serious. He leaned across me and opened my door. I need you to get out of the car, Sophia. What? Get out of the car. His voice was calm, controlled. "I have to make this call, and frankly, I can't concentrate with you breathing like that." It was as if the world had tilted on its axis. Nothing made sense. The man sitting next to me, the father of my child, my husband of 4 years, was telling me to get out of our car on the side of a highway while I was in labor. "Please," I said, adding the pleading in my voice. "Please don't do this." His response was to reach over, unbuckle my seatbelt, and physically guide me toward the open door. I stumbled out in a daze, one hand bracing against the car, the other supporting my belly. Before I could fully comprehend what was happening, Nathan had closed the door and started the engine. Through the window, I saw him mouth something that looked like, "I'll call you later," before pulling back into traffic, leaving me standing on the shoulder of Highway 16, contractions coming every 7 minutes, completely alone. I watched his silver Audi disappear around the bend, my mind unable to process the reality of my situation. Cars rushed past, some honking, others slowing slightly before speeding up again. No one stopped. I fumbled for my phone, fingers trembling so badly I could barely unlock the screen. Another contraction hit, harder, longer. I doubled over, nearly dropping to my knees on the gravel. That's when I heard someone calling my name. "Sophia, oh my God, Sophia." Through tear-blurred vision, I saw a familiar face, Olivia, my neighbor from 3 doors down. She was jogging toward me from her parked car, phone in hand, horror written across her features. "What happened? Are you okay?" She reached me, wrapping a supportive arm around my shoulders. "Nathan," I managed between gasps. "He left me, the baby's coming." Olivia's expression hardened. Without hesitation, she raised her phone and pressed record. "What are you doing?" I asked, clutching her arm as another wave of pain crashed over me. "Documenting," she said, her voice suddenly steel. "I was doing a sunset time lapse for my photography blog. I saw everything, Sophia. His car, you getting out, him driving away." She helped me toward her car, still recording. "We're going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man Nathan Reeves really is." As the ambulance approached, Olivia had called while helping me into her car. I felt something shift inside me. Not just the baby preparing for his entrance into the world, but something deeper. A breaking and a beginning all at once. 8 hours later, my son Liam was born. Nathan arrived at the hospital 2 hours after the delivery, flowers in hand, concerned husband mask firmly in place for the nursing staff. He had no idea that his performance had already been recorded, shared, and was spreading through our community like wildfire. I watched his practiced smile with new eyes, my son nestled against my chest, and realized I was seeing Nathan clearly for the first time. Not as the charming man I'd married, but as the hollow shell he truly was. And in that moment, something inside me hardened into resolution. This man had abandoned me in my most vulnerable moment. He would never have the chance to do the same to our son. These allegations are completely unfounded and, frankly, hurtful to my family during what should be a joyous time. Nathan's face filled the screen of my laptop, his expression a perfect mixture of confusion and wounded dignity. The local news interview had been running on repeat all morning, his desperate attempt at damage control after Olivia's video went viral. "My wife's situation has been greatly dramatized," he continued, adjusting his tie, the navy one I'd given him for our anniversary. "Yes, there was a misunderstanding about transportation to the hospital, but I was present for our son's birth and have been nothing but supportive throughout our marriage." I muted the video, unable to stomach any more of his lies. Liam squirmed against my chest, his tiny fingers curling around mine. 3 weeks old and already the strongest person I knew. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia, "Meeting at the community center tonight, 7 p.m. We've got more people coming forward. Bring Liam if you need to. We'll have childcare." "What do you think, little man?" I whispered to my son. "Ready to see your mom stand up for herself?" He yawned in response, unimpressed by my newfound courage. The past 3 weeks had been a blur of newborn care and unexpected revelations. After Olivia's video went public, The story spread through our suburban community with stunning speed. Nathan's carefully cultivated image as the charming, successful husband began to crumble as people started connecting dots I hadn't even known existed. The gathering at the Pinecrest Community Center that evening was larger than I'd expected. Familiar faces nodded at me as I entered with Liam strapped to my chest. Some I recognized from neighborhood events, others from local businesses. All wore expressions of grim determination. Olivia met me at the door, gently taking Liam from my arms. "Rachel's going to watch him in the side room. She brought her daughter too, they'll be fine." I hesitated, having never been separated from him before. "It's just across the hall," Olivia assured me. "You can check on him anytime, but trust me, you'll want both hands free for this meeting." She led me to a circle of chairs where about 20 people waited. A projector was set up on one side, a whiteboard covered in notes on the other. It looked like a war room, which I supposed it was, a battlefield planning session for a war I hadn't known I was fighting. "Sophia," a woman stood and approached me. I recognized her but couldn't place from where. "I'm Vanessa. I used to be Nathan's executive assistant at Meridian." My stomach dropped. Nathan had mentioned her departure 6 months ago, something about her being underqualified and emotionally unstable. "I've been documenting everything for months," she said, opening a leather portfolio. "I wasn't sure what to do with it all until I saw Olivia's video." She laid out printed emails, calendar screenshots, and transcribed voice memos in neat rows. Each piece told part of a story I'd never known. Nathan canceling my doctor's appointments without telling me, scheduling work events on dates he'd promised to be home, laughing with colleagues about my pregnancy paranoia. "There's more," said a man I'd never seen before. He introduced himself as Ethan, the IT specialist from Nathan's firm. "He's been using company resources to track your location through your phone. I found the software installed after the quarterly security audit. He told me it was with your knowledge, for safety during the pregnancy." The revelations continued as more people shared what they knew. The barista from our local coffee shop, who'd overheard Nathan badmouthing me to business associates multiple times. The neighbor who'd seen Nathan return home at 3 a.m. on the night I'd called him, terrified about early contractions, only to be told he was stuck in a meeting across town. The florist who delivered roses each month to an address that wasn't mine. With each new piece of evidence, the image of my marriage disintegrated further. What I'd thought were isolated incidents of neglect revealed themselves as a calculated pattern of emotional abuse and infidelity stretching back years. "Why are you all doing this?" I asked when the stories finally paused. "Why help me? You barely know me." A woman I recognized from the neighborhood park spoke up. "Because we've all been there, Sophia. Maybe not exactly the same situation, but we know what it's like to be invisible, to be diminished, to be gaslit into thinking you're crazy for expecting basic human decency." Olivia squeezed my hand. "And because what he did, leaving you on the side of the road in labor, that crossed a line none of us can ignore." "So what happens now?" I asked, overwhelmed by the evidence surrounding me. "That's up to you," Olivia said. "We have enough here for a restraining order, enough for divorce proceedings where he won't get shared custody, possibly enough for criminal charges of reckless endangerment. Or," added Vanessa with a cold smile, "we can make sure everyone in Atlanta knows exactly who Nathan Reeves really is, starting with his clients." The room went quiet, all eyes on me. For a moment, I felt paralyzed by the weight of the decision. Then Liam's cry echoed from the next room, and something crystallized inside me, a clarity I hadn't felt in years. "Both," I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. "We do both. Legal action for Liam's protection and public exposure for every other woman Nathan might hurt in the future." The room nodded in collective agreement. Plans were made, tasks assigned, timelines established. By the time I left the community center that night, cradling Liam against my chest in the cool evening air, I felt something I hadn't experienced since long before my pregnancy: power. Nathan's carefully constructed world was about to collapse, and for once, I would be the one watching from a safe distance. Significant others can sometimes develop resentment toward a new baby. That's likely what we're seeing with Sophia's claims. Nathan's voice drifted from the television as I nursed Liam in our temporary apartment, a safe house of sorts provided by a domestic abuse foundation. His newest strategy was to paint me as an emotionally unstable new mother, his concern-filled eyes staring directly into the camera as he diagnosed me with severe postpartum depression. "I just want my wife and son to come home so I can support them through this difficult time," he continued, his voice breaking at precisely the right moment. "Sophia, if you're watching this, I love you. We can get through this together." "Your daddy thinks I'm crazy," I whispered to Liam, who gazed up at me with eyes that somehow already looked skeptical. "What do you think? Am I losing my mind?" He responded by falling asleep mid-feed, milk dribbling from the corner of his mouth. My tiny ally, already expert at calling bullshit. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. at the same community center where we'd gathered evidence weeks before. My lawyer, a shark in designer clothing named Alina Vega, had coached me through every detail: what to wear conservative but not matronly, how to speak firmly but not angrily, when to show emotion sparingly and strategically. "Remember," she'd said during our final preparation, "Nathan has built his entire reputation on being charming and reasonable. Your power lies in being factual and unshakable." As the hour approached, a different kind of contraction gripped my stomach, fear mixed with determination. I checked my reflection in the mirror: navy dress, subtle makeup, hair pulled back in a simple style. I looked nothing like the exhausted, desperate woman Nathan had abandoned on the highway 2 months ago. Olivia arrived to drive me, leaving her husband Austin at the apartment with Liam. "You ready for this?" I nodded, unable to find words adequate for the moment. The community center was packed beyond capacity. Local news cameras lined the back wall, reporters clutching notebooks in the front row. Through the side entrance, I glimpsed familiar faces from our strategy sessions: Vanessa with her portfolio of evidence, Ethan with his technical documentation, neighbors and colleagues, and even some of Nathan's clients who had reached out after hearing rumors. Alina met us in a small office off the main hall, clipboard in hand. "He just arrived," she informed me. "Front entrance, full entourage, his parents, his lawyer, 2 colleagues as character witnesses." "Did he bring the girlfriend?" I asked, surprising myself with how little the question hurt. "No, but he's wearing his wedding ring again." Alina's expression was grim. "Are you absolutely certain you want to go through with the video? It's not too late to focus solely on the legal case." The video? Olivia's recording of Nathan abandoning me, enhanced and compiled with security footage from nearby businesses and timestamp documentation. The nuclear option. "I'm sure," I said, straightening my shoulders. "He's spent years making me doubt myself. I won't let him do the same to everyone else." At precisely 2 p.m., I walked to the podium set up in the center of the room. Camera flashes nearly blinded me as I adjusted the microphone. From the corner of my eye, I saw Nathan enter from the back, his expression a perfect mask of concerned husband coming to support his troubled wife. He hadn't expected me to beat him to the stage. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice steadier than I dared hope. "My name is Sophia Reeves. 2 months ago, I gave birth to my son Liam after being abandoned on the side of Highway 16 by my husband, Nathan Reeves." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nathan froze halfway down the aisle, his carefully planned entrance disrupted. "I'm here today because the truth matters. Not Nathan's version of the truth, not the story he's been telling on television, but the actual documented events." I nodded to Olivia, who dimmed the lights and started the projection behind me. The video began to play, crystal clear footage of Nathan's car pulling to the shoulder, my obvious distress as I exited the vehicle, his car driving away as I doubled over in pain. "This was the night I went into premature labor," I narrated calmly as the footage continued. "My water had broken. Nathan was aware of this when he told me to get out of the car and call myself an Uber." The room had gone completely silent. Even the camera shutters seemed to pause. This video was recorded by my neighbor Olivia Chen, who was capturing sunset footage for her photography blog. She witnessed the entire incident, called an ambulance, and drove me to the hospital herself. The projection shifted to hospital security footage showing Nathan arriving hours after Liam's birth, the timestamp clearly visible in the corner. Contrary to Nathan's public statements, he was not present for our son's birth. He arrived 2 hours after Liam was born, by which time I had already contacted a lawyer regarding emergency custody arrangements. I continued methodically through the evidence, the documented pattern of Nathan's neglect, the witness statements, the medical records contradicting his claims about my mental health. "These aren't allegations," I said, looking directly at Nathan for the first time. "These are facts. Documented, verified facts that tell a very different story than the one my husband has been sharing with the media." Nathan's face had lost all color, his practiced expression crumbling as he realized the extent of the evidence against him. His lawyer was frantically whispering in his ear, but he seemed unable to process what was happening. "I am not suffering from postpartum depression," I continued. "I am suffering from the effects of years of emotional abuse at the hands of a man who has built his entire identity on appearing perfect while treating those closest to him with calculated cruelty." A reporter raised her hand. "Mrs. Reeves, what do you hope to accomplish by coming forward today?" I took a deep breath. 3 things. First, to secure my son's future through appropriate legal channels. Second, to provide other women in similar situations with hope that they can reclaim their lives. And third, I paused, looking directly at Nathan again, to ensure that my husband's true character is visible at last. Nathan lunged toward the podium then, his mask completely shattered. "You manipulative bitch," he shouted, only to be restrained by security. "You're going to regret this. No one is going to believe your side over mine." But as he was escorted from the room, the expressions on the gathered faces told a different story. Every shout, every threat simply confirmed what the evidence had already proven. I stepped away from the microphone, letting Alina take over with details about the legal proceedings. My part was done. After years of disappearing bit by bit, I had finally made myself fully visible, not just to Nathan, but to myself. "The court finds clear and convincing evidence of a pattern of emotional and financial abuse," Judge Reynolds declared, her gavel striking with finality. "Full physical custody is awarded to the plaintiff, Sophia Reeves, with supervised visitation for the defendant at the court's discretion following completion of mandatory counseling." 6 months after the press conference, we were in the final hearing of a divorce and custody case that had captivated Atlanta's social circles. Nathan sat at the defendant's table, head bowed, the Tom Ford suit that had once symbolized his success now hanging slightly loose on his frame. I felt no triumph as the judge continued reading her decision, only relief that the legal battle was finally ending. Liam, now 8 months old and babbling happily with my mother in the hallway, would be protected from the toxic environment I'd endured for years. Nathan didn't look at me as he was led out by his attorney. His parents, conspicuously absent from the courtroom after their own disturbing text messages to me had been entered into evidence, had stopped defending him publicly weeks ago. Outside the courthouse, a small group had gathered in support. Olivia and Austin, Vanessa, and several women from the support group I'd started after the press conference. They formed a protective circle around me as we descended the steps, shielding Liam from the few reporters still interested in the story. "It's really over," I said to Olivia as we walked toward the parking lot. "I can hardly believe it." "Not over," she corrected with a gentle smile. "Just beginning, there's a difference." She was right, of course. The end of my marriage to Nathan marked the beginning of everything else. My role leading support workshops for women leaving abusive relationships, my renewed passion for the photography I'd abandoned during my marriage, my deepening friendships with people who actually saw me. And then there was Daniel, Olivia's brother, who had been quietly present throughout the ordeal. He was waiting by my car, hands in his pockets, No expectations in his eyes, just steady support and genuine care for both Liam and me. "How'd it go?" he asked simply. "We won," I said, the words still strange in my mouth. After years of losing pieces of myself, winning felt almost foreign. "Never doubted it." His smile was warm as he helped secure Liam's car seat. "Still on for the park tomorrow. Weather's supposed to be perfect." I nodded, feeling the gentle possibility between us. Not a replacement relationship or a quick fix, but something tentative and authentic growing at its own pace. My new apartment welcomed us with afternoon sunlight streaming through uncurtained windows. Nathan had always insisted on heavy drapes for privacy, though I now understood it was more about control. The walls were painted the soft green he'd vetoed in our marital home. Photos from community gatherings displayed prominently on shelves he would have deemed cluttered. That evening, after putting Liam to bed, I stepped onto my small balcony overlooking the community garden. Olivia had given me a paper lantern as a housewarming gift, inscribed with a simple phrase, "To guide you home." I lit it now, watching the warm glow illuminate the growing darkness. On the table beside me lay my journal, open to the question I'd been asking myself each night since leaving Nathan. What does freedom look like to you? Tonight, I finally had an answer clear enough to write down. Freedom looks like visibility, not just being seen, but being recognized for who I truly am. Freedom is standing in the light, even when, especially when, that light reveals uncomfortable truths. Freedom is teaching my son that love never diminishes you, never makes you smaller, never leaves you stranded when you're in pain. Freedom is a paper lantern on a balcony, illuminating just enough space to know where I stand and where I might go next. I closed the journal and looked out at the city lights stretching to the horizon. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to make myself smaller or quieter or less visible to accommodate someone else's comfort. I was exactly as large as I needed to be, no more, no less. Perfectly, completely visible at last.